Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Revelations with Rowena. I have a sultry voice today. I was telling Vince before we recorded that I think I got hit with something. The daycare crud is real. I'm sure the fellow parents out there understand what I am talking about. I'm going to do my best. Vince gave me some great pro tips, so hopefully by next week we'll be good to go. But I am so excited, so excited. You don't even understand. I'm like so pumped to have the one and only Vince Warnock here today. He is a marketer, a speaker, an author. He's just amazing human being from across the pond, taking time out of schedule to be here. Thank you so much, Vince, for being on the show with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Rowena. Seriously, after the last time you and I caught up, we're just like, we just should schedule regular catch-ups. Forget about the podcast, forget about the lives. This is just you and I hanging out. But you did make me really, really nervous. As soon as you started singing, I'm like, oh crap, am I supposed to sing on this show? Seriously, my kids have banned me singing in public. It's that bad. You don't want that.
No singing required. You're off the hook for today. Maybe next time when we have our next chat, you can.
We'll make it a karaoke special. I'm totally in. I don't think anyone would listen to it, but you and I will have a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? I love that because I take karaoke very seriously. As you know, I Filipino American, Filipinos, karaoke is our love language. So very important.
Seriously, if I get up on stage, I had this a previous employment where I was only there for like 2 weeks, and the CEO said, right, we're going to Christmas dinner, because it was near Christmas. He said, we're going to a Christmas party and Christmas dinner. We're going out to this fancy restaurant. Then afterwards, we're going to karaoke. And I'm like, okay, cool. We go to the karaoke bar and he goes, oh, God, come on, get up there, Vince, get up there. Don't be shy. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not shy. It's okay. I just don't want to get up there. And he goes, no, come on, man. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be shy. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm not shy. I'm not embarrassed. I just don't want to get up there. And he finally pressured me and he said, how about the two of us go up? And I'm like, well, I can't turn him down now. This is going to be embarrassing. So we chose Pulp's Common People. Awesome song. Got up on stage, grabbed the microphone. And the second I made the connection with the microphone, I completely forgot he was up there with me. I completely forgot where I was. To me, I was at Wembley. There were like 80,000 people there. They were all singing along with me. And I just gave it like 200%. And about apparently a quarter of the way through the song, he just skulked off the stage.
He just walked off.
I'm not needed anymore.
Wow.
Great way to make a first impression with the CEO. Yeah.
That's an awesome story. Yeah. I always bring in karaoke to every interview situation that I'm in as like a fun fact. Or I was actually just joking with a colleague earlier this week that that's the reason why I got hired at my current marketing job is for the karaoke, not my business acumen.
There you go. All right, I have to ask Rowena, and I know we're not talking about this on the show. We don't care though. What's your number one go-to song?
I was actually going to ask you the same, friend. So we're on the same wavelength today. And you know what? As I mentioned, these conversations are super casual. So let's talk about karaoke before we talk about imposter syndrome, right? Like, we'll tie it in somehow.
They link. We'll find a link. It's all good.
So I will say I'm a very serious karaoke singer, and COVID-19 has been difficult for us, right? Because you can't go out in karaoke bars during lockdown. But I'm an empath, so I have to feel the vibe of the room and the space.
Yeah.
But one of my go-tos is Like a Prayer by Madonna. And I like dance around and I walk and talk and sing to people. Another one, a recent one that I've been doing a lot based on the vibe again, is Creep by Radiohead, actually.
That's one of my old go-tos. Seriously. Yeah, absolutely serious. Oh my goodness, you got me excited now. Yeah, no, Creep by Radiohead. I haven't done it in a long while actually, but I generally, there's one song I always try and start with, and that's just because it puts me in the vibe and the mood, and it makes me not try and sing. I know that sounds weird, but the song is Love by Nat King Cole. And I just get into total crooner mode and I have fun with it and I work the crowd. And I prefer karaoke where it's not in a booth, where there's an audience, there's a whole bar there. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Come on up, everyone. So I usually start with that. Then I go into Pulp's Common People. What else? Oh my goodness. Concrete and Clay, if you ever heard that. One of my most embarrassing karaoke songs that I I love is I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family. So
Oh, that's a
it is
good
the
one.
cheesiest song ever, but it's so much fun to sing,
So
honestly. Yeah,
fun.
I love
So
it. I love
fun.
it.
Well, listen, I think we've already have it set. We've confirmed it. I'm gonna have
Yep,
to fly over there at some point, and
do it.
we're gonna have to sing. I actually dreamt last week that I was supposed to fly to London, but I left my passport at home. And
Oh.
in my dream, I'm calling friends. Can you
Yep.
get my passport?
That makes me so anxious, and only because real life scenario with one of my previous startups, we were flying over to, can't remember if it was the States or Aussie, but I was taking my co-founder with me. It was a really important, like we're going over for a week. It was really important. It was to Australia, meeting with all these different companies and basically selling as you do. We got to the airport and he's like, "Oh wait, where's my passport?" And he lived like, an hour away from the airport, and our flight's in an hour. I'm like, you moron. So he got his wife to race it into him. And oh man, he made me so angry. We got there on the flight, but it
You
was
got our
literally
time?
one of those on time, but it was one of those ones where you hear the final boarding call and they
Yep.
go, "This is the final boarding call." And it's at the point where they call your name. Final boarding call for Mr. Warnock and Mr. Broadley. And I looked at him and went, "You made me that guy. Wow." So we
Oh,
hopped on the plane and I walked down the plane apologizing to everyone on there. "I'm sorry, it's not my fault, it's his fault." "Sorry, everyone, his fault. Hey, he's a moron." No. I hate being late. It really makes me anxious.
well, I'm gonna try to transition here. Speaking of walking down the runway or walking down the aisles of the airplane from which you're late, I would love to hear more about how you walked into this
Oh,
trajectory.
well played, well played. That's a candidate for Segway of the year. I like that.
Would love to know
um,
your
yeah,
story. I mean, fellow marketer, I wanna know more about
yeah.
you.
Well, I never planned on being a marketer. Originally, I studied electronics, computer, and software engineering because I wanted to be that guy that made all the gadgets for James Bond or Batman. Until I realized that they're not real, and it's not a viable career option, and it's really, really boring. And I just had this massive passion for technology, a real passion for technology, and then realized that my true passion is actually people. So when you combine a love of understanding people, working out why they behave the way they do, working out how they think, how they feel, and technology, that kind of convergence point became marketing. So I kind of fell into it accidentally. I started doing web design and web development, and then it was like, well, it's all good designing a website, but you really want one that people are going to use and engage with, which means you need to understand what they're looking for. Then I'm like, oh, well, this is just basically marketing. I ended up, I think my first ever marketing job, Rowena, was I was sitting at a bar and we were catching up with a whole pile of friends, sitting at a bar one day, and some of the people, I didn't actually know them, they were sitting there and they were talking about this project that they wanted to do, and they were really kind of stressed. They were going, "Oh man, we're trying to get quotes for this, and everyone's quoting us $500,000 to get this project done, but we don't have that kind of budget." I said, "Well, what are you trying to achieve?" And they told me, and I went, "Ah, I could do that in a weekend, and I'd do it for $50,000." And they went, "Okay." I went, "Oh crap." And then I realized I have no idea how to do it. I honestly, I had to go away that weekend and go, right, how am I going to do this? And then I realized why people charge that much for it is because technology wise, it really hadn't been done before. And I thought, well, that's not going to stop me. I'm going to have to do it within this budget or I'm going to look like a fool. I'm good enough at doing that on my own. I don't really need help. So I threw myself at it and managed to produce something at the end of the weekend. It was like this interactive video with multiple languages and multiple different things that you do on there. It was really, really cool. Didn't realize that they had submitted it afterwards to a pile of awards. And then they contacted me and said, "Oh, that's the International W3 Awards. They've nominated us as a finalist in a number of categories. They want to know if we're going to fly over there." And I'm going, "Well, we really need to be careful with the money. Like I don't want you guys to waste money. Who are we up against?" And they went, "Oh, we're up against American Airlines, Sony, Heineken, Visa, and all this." I'm like, yeah, we have no shot whatsoever. So there's no point flying over there. Don't worry. Save your money. It'll all be good. We can have a little celebration here. And then found out not only did we win, we won like a pile of gold medals and gold trophies there, but we also won best in show over everybody else. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
wait,
goodness.
we should have gone. And then I found out Will I Am was the guy handing out the trophies. And I'm going,
Whoa.
my goodness, I'm a massive fanboy of his. I was like, it made me cry. I was like, damn it, I should have followed my gut and just gone, let's go. Let's fly to Vegas. We're doing this. So at that point, they just went, hey, we need to hire you. And I went, not interested. I'm doing freelance stuff. And then they went, can we hire you now? And I went, okay, I'm coming on board. Mainly because I thought if I turn that down, my wife's going to kill me. And that started my marketing career. And I kind of,
Wow.
from there, have gone in and out of both corporate and entrepreneurship. So I've always kind of created companies, and I was going to say always created companies and sold them. But in the early stage, it was always create companies and fail, and then get to the point where you know what you're
Love
doing
that.
and create companies and sell them. And just came off the back of my biggest acquisition. So we sold Common Ledger for 8 figures, 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember what now. Time's irrelevant now.
Yeah.
Came off the back of that. And then while we're going through the process of selling it, realized that, I'm leaving there. I said to them, I'm to my co-founders, I'm done. We crossed all these major milestones, but I'm on the road all the time. And I've got a family, and my son had sat me down. I'd just come back from Sydney, actually. And he sat me down and he said, hey, Dad. I said, yeah. And he goes, can we have a chat? And I said, sure, mate. He was 12. And he said, look, I know you're building a really good business, but I think we need to spend more time together.
Aw.
And as a dad, that does 2 things. I was split down the middle on this, right? Half of me was so genuinely pleased that we have that kind of relationship. It's something that's really important to me for our whole family, is to make sure that we can be emotionally honest with each other. It's a safe space.
Yes.
We can just tell you how we feel, so that made me really proud in that sense. But the other half of me just went, ouch. Like, the fact that he had to ask me that meant that I really wasn't prioritizing him. So I just made a point of it. I said, actually, that's a really good point. Hold that thought. Picked up my phone, and I watched him roll his eyes as soon as I pick up the phone and go, no, Dad's on the phone again. I rang my co-founder, said, conference call, jumped no conference call, and said, hey, guys, just letting you know, I'm done. I'm out. I'll stay on as the majority shareholder, but we can hire someone to replace me. I need to spend more time with the family. It was at that point I learned a whole pile of new expletives, because they're yelling them down the phone at me. You're like freaking out, and I'm like, talk Monday, bye. And then turned around to my son. He went, oh, that was easy. But I wanted him to know that they are my priority. I wanted him to know that you are more important than anything we're building here. So I'm done with that. And then the next day had felt all that pressure come off me, because honestly, it's high stress when you're building a high growth tech startup. Felt all that pressure come off. I'm like, oh, this is glorious. And then went, wait, what's that thing you need? Oh, that's right. If you go down to the supermarket and you go, can I get all my groceries and I'll give you 0.0001% equity, they're going to look at you funny. So I need a job. So that's when I joined the team at Cigna Insurance and became the chief marketing officer there for around 5 years, until December 2019. Realized on paper, everything at Cigna was incredible. On paper, I had turned the company around. We had doubled the revenue while I was there of the company. We'd gone from the 6th or 7th, I can never remember which, 6th or 7th largest insurer to the 2nd largest.
Yeah.
I had taken online sales from like 2% to about 48% of our revenue. Just the numbers were staggering. I
Yeah.
published my first book when I was there. That was going gangbusters. I was getting the recognition in the awards. In fact, even Adobe recognized me as one of the top 50 marketers in the world. All of this was like, wow, on paper, incredible.
Yeah.
Inside me, really unhappy and really unfulfilled. And I realized that I'll say I'm not cut out to be a CMO, as in I do really well in that role. But the reality is, at that level, you're treating people as a number or a dollar sign. And that doesn't sit with me. I'm a very empathetic person. I need to be around people. I need to be close to where I'm impacting people. So made the easiest hard decision of my life. Ran CEO, said, I think I need to move on. And the goal was literally to move on from Cigna and just focus on writing my next book, which is all about imposter syndrome. So I was like, right, I'm going to focus on writing the next book. Left there in January 2020, before COVID. So it was awesome. And then got bored after about a week. So that then just kind of merged into writing 2 books at the same. I think I've got about 3 or 4 books that are going to be published, plus launched my podcast, and plus launched a coaching career and a group program to help entrepreneurs. So that's my whirlwind tour. There we go.
No rest for the weary, sir.
No.
Wow. What a fascinating story, how you fell into marketing and have this natural inclination for it, all of this success. I know I've talked about it before, how on paper all the achievements are there, but
Yeah.
just something, and I think we talked about on your podcast as well,
Yeah,
right?
we did.
That
That's right. Yeah.
something is missing, there's some sort of void that needs to be filled. And I think that I know that we're both the same, and that it ties to helping people, connecting with people, as you said, being close to the ground and not so high up that everyone's a number, everyone's a percentage, everyone's a dollar sign. That's really
It's the
awesome.
funniest thing I'd noticed. And look, the Cigna is an awesome place to work. It really is, genuinely. My team were incredible. They're all high performers. We had a really high performing team. The senior leadership, they're amazing. The CEO is amazing. But I did notice that there was this attribute there where everybody at that level is kind of putting on all these different masks and putting on all these different kind of
Mm.
coats, is the way I describe it. It's like, okay, I'm the CMO now. I put on my CMO coat and I go in there and I act like a CEO and all this kind of thing. And it's a high stress environment, which means people are constantly on edge and they're constantly defending themselves. They're constantly trying to look after themselves.
Yeah.
So it's not a healthy environment. It's definitely like some people thrive in that kind of environment, and that is fantastic. Good on them, because we need people that do that. But the reality is, for a lot of people, you're being really inauthentic to yourself. You're not operating as you. You're trying to operate as what you expect people think you should operate like. And then you're feeling like you're going into the office every day feeling this disconnect. You're feeling this thing where it's like, I would rather be this way, but I'm being asked to be that way.
Yes.
And a good example of that was one of the most common quotes I've seen through most of my career is people saying, "Oh, Vince, you're too nice." And they mean it as an offhanded compliment / insult, "Oh, you're too nice," or "I don't know if you can make the right decision because you're too nice." I lost it one day. CEO says to me, "Oh, Vince, we've got to make all these structural changes. We've got to do all this and this. I'm just worried, you might be too nice to make the hard calls on that." And I said, "Okay, first of all, don't ever say that again." And they were like, "Hello? Do you remember who you're talking to?" And the whole room went, and I said, "So the words too and nice do not belong in a sentence together." I said, niceness is not a weakness, it's a superpower. I said, because
Mm.
when you genuinely care about somebody, you can make the hard calls, because you know what it's like to be sitting in a role, to be sitting in your job, thinking I'm not performing, thinking everyone's going to see through me, thinking I'm not happy here. And if you've got employees in that situation, the nice thing to do is to help them to find what they're called to. And that may
Mm.
be another position within the organization. It may be actually releasing them, letting them go so they can find that job that's going to work for them.
Yes.
But you do not want them sitting there in that anxiety and that stress and that inauthenticity. So that's the nice thing I said. And then I said, so don't use that term as a derogatory term again. And the CEO folds their arms and goes, touche. And please remember who you're talking to next time. I'm like, oh, and then like sweat pouring up in my stomach, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just did that. But it worked. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love that. I love that reframing of the word nice, right?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
yeah, it shouldn't be seen as a weakness. It is a superpower. It's a way to connect with people and to bring out their zones of genius, right? To your
Oh,
point, that
absolutely.
what is the right path for that? So
Yeah.
with that in mind, the superpower being a superhero,
Aha. Now you're talking my language. Yeah.
yeah, talking about that imposter syndrome. Because
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, that first example, that story of how you're like, "Oh, I can do it in a weekend for 50K." Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Right? You were bold and audacious enough to make that claim, and now you have to back it up. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I'm sure that there were many moments of imposter syndrome in that weekend
Oh,
alone,
yeah. Oh,
let
yeah.
alone in your whole career trajectory. Can you speak to this and on what imposter syndrome
Absolutely.
means for you and how that has impacted the success that you've had
Yeah.
and everything like that? Yeah.
Look, I'll be honest, Rowena. Imposter syndrome is something that I think I think it's like a thorn in my side. It's going to be something that's with me for my life,
Mm.
and a lot of it goes back to childhood. So I grew up in an impoverished house. Like, we were very, very poor.
Mhm.
Grew up in a really poor neighborhood. I grew up amongst violence. We had we had two rival gangs where I grew up. One was about 5 houses away, and the other was down around the corner. We were right in the middle of all this. I also grew up in an abusive household, with drug problems, all sorts of stuff. So not very nice
Mm.
environment. But when you're in that environment, the thought of amounting to anything is very foreign. You're surrounded by people that feel trapped and feel like they have no hope and no future. So therefore, you take that on board. You
Yeah.
feel that there's no way you can do this. You're surrounded by people like my parents who would be like, we have nothing. So therefore, anybody who does have something, they're the enemy, or they're the ones that look
Mm.
down on us, or they're the people that they don't deserve that we deserve it, and we don't get it. Life's unfair.
Mm.
That's not a healthy way for a child to live at all. And it meant that anytime I ever got any success or accolades or anything like that, I felt like I didn't deserve them. And I felt like I wasn't worthy of them.
Wow.
So it wasn't till, and I still remember, age 11 is like a pivotal age for me for multiple different reasons. Because when you grow up in an abusive household, school is your happy place. So it's like, oh, this is amazing. So I get to go to school and hang out with real people where I can let my defenses down. I'm not worried about being hurt. I'm not worried about being injured. So therefore I could just be myself. And also I found that I love learning. It was like, oh man, I'm good at this. Like, it was like at our school, I actually got in trouble at our primary school because they were learning, like we were about 5, and they were teaching us how to tell time with a dial clock, back in those days. And I'm like, this is logical, makes perfect sense. I'm done. Peace. Drop the mic. I've learned this. But then I noticed the guy next to me, one of my friends, was actually really struggling with it. So I thought, okay, well, the teacher's not really giving him the help he needs. So I sat down and I taught him, and he got it. And he was so happy. He was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, wow, wow, wow. The teacher saw what happened, and I got detention for undermining the teacher. That's the kind of school we grew up in. I'm like, you insecure jerk, But then I got to age 11, and we transitioned from primary school into what we call intermediate. So it's like a transitional school for 2 years when you're 11 and 12, and then you go off to high school or what we call college. So I'm at this intermediate school, and I discovered multiple things there. I discovered certain things that I'm good at. I also discovered a bully. So now I had a bully at school and a bully at home. I had no safe space whatsoever. But I also discovered a teacher who was different to any other teacher I'd had before. And I was a bit of a smart-ass kid. And I remember he was talking to us about doing presentations. And I'm like, when are we going to get a chance to do a presentation? Come on, man. And he goes, how about now, Vince? Because he loved to put me on the spot. And I went, say what? And he goes, come up the front. He goes, right, everyone, class, Vince is going to talk for 5 minutes. He's going to do a 5-minute presentation. What topic should we get him to do? And, being the 11-year-olds that they are, they're really creative. So someone said, an egg. So I had to speak for 5 minutes on an egg. And I'm like, and he said, you got like 20 seconds to prepare. And the time's ticking, and my brain's blank. All I could think of, the only thing I could think of was which came first, the chicken or the egg. That's the only thing that popped in my mind. So he said, and your time starts now. And I said that out loud. I said, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And then my brain switched into this different mode. And all of a sudden, these words would flow. Everything would just come naturally. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And we got to near the end. He said, right, you got about 20 seconds left. And then I went, so therefore, obviously, the chicken came first. And the class was like, they're all roaring because, they're easy to impress. But I turned around to the teacher, and he looked at me, this Māori teacher, and he just said, Vince, that was impressive. I can't remember the exact words, but it was along the lines of, that was impressive. You've really got a gift. He said, do you realize you could do something really significant?
Wow.
And I'm like, what is this feeling? I had this like strange thing. I thought it was indigestion. I didn't know what was this bubbly feeling on the inside. I'm like, somebody's believing in me. Oh my goodness. And that was the moment where I realized that I could be something, but it's also the moment I realized I want to be what he was to me, to other people. I want to be the one that makes people know that you're actually born for something really significant and something really great. So that started a kind of weird journey to go on. But through all of that, every single time I put my head above others, this natural pattern of being a child and feeling like I'm not worthy would always pop up. And it came to a head a number of times in my career, but one of the most significant ones was when I published my first book. It was something that I really wanted to do for multiple reasons. One, because where I was working at Cigna at the time, the methodologies that I introduced into the company were like the results we got were staggering. So every Cigna market around the world were like, we want you to teach us, Vince. We want you to help us. Can you jump on a call a week with us just for an hour? And I'm going, an hour a week for each of these different individuals. That's more than a full-time job. Yeah. So I said, I'll write a book. You can all buy my book, then I'll get some money for it. That'll be cool. But also wanted to write a book because someone once told me you'll never make a writer. She was someone I used to work with who was really annoyed at the accolades I was getting. So she was like, why does Vince get all this? Right, while I'm standing beside her, she goes, he's not an author. He wouldn't make an author's a-hole. And I went, huh, really? Challenge accepted.
Grown.
But I got near the end of writing the book, and it was a crazy journey writing the book. A whole lot of stuff that happened during it. And we got to the end, and somebody said to me, don't bother doing a book launch. Nobody does book launches anymore. They're all dead. No one goes to them. And I'm like, I'm a marketer. Hold my beer. I'll organize this. So organized an event, got like 100 people there. We filled the sort of pace that we were at. We got people flying over from Australia, all over New Zealand, some of my peers in the industry, some of the people that have been on the journey with me, all together to celebrate the launch of this book. And I'm like, right, okay, I need to mentally prepare for this. I'm aware that imposter syndrome kicks in, so I can prepare for this. So I'm like, right, I'm going to have to sign books there. Yeah, okay, I'm going to have to rationalize that in my head. Even though I'm not a celebrity and they're asking for my autograph essentially, which is really weird. The fact is, if I go to a book launch, I want a signed copy. Okay, I get this. That's fine. I can rationalize it. Bought myself a fancy pen, turned up to the event, told the story of how I did the book. And I love being in front of a crowd, as you know. So I'm like, oh, this is my element.
Yeah.
And then we got to the end there, and I was signing the books and handing them out to everyone. And as I'm doing it, everyone said something along the lines of, I can't wait to read it. And the moment they said that, I suddenly felt very exposed and very afraid. And I had this knotted feeling in my stomach.
Wow.
So I left that event that night, and I should have been like, I'm a high extrovert. Being around that many people, you know,
Yeah.
pre-COVID days, being around that many people, I'm like, I should be energized and excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was the opposite. I felt really oppressed. I got
Oh,
home.
no.
I had all these conversations going on in my head. Like, who do you think you are, Vince? What makes you think you've got a right to write a book? What makes you think anyone wants to read this crap? Or if they do read it, they're going to realize you're an amateur. And this is the tricks my brain plays on me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I spiraled and I said, right, that's it. I made a decision that night. I said, a dumb decision, by the way, made a decision that night and said, I don't want to talk about my book anymore. Right. I had interviews lined up with Forbes, with CIO magazine, with Diginomica, all going to do big spreads on the book and on me. And I'm like, nah, I'm all good. I'm too busy. Sorry, guys. I'm chief marketing officer, way too busy. I was busy, but that was a lie. It was just
Yeah.
me
Yeah. It
being
was just,
afraid, you know?
yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yes. So I turned that down, and then I just went quiet, went dark on it, and just focused on my work. And about 2 weeks, or just under 2 weeks later, I think one of my mentors called me up, and he never calls you up, by the way. You've got to book time with this guy. And he called me up and he's like, hey, just checking in on you, Vince. How's the book sales going? So I told him. He's like, oh, that's actually really good. And I said, yeah. And he goes, but I haven't seen any posts from you out there. I haven't seen any PR whatsoever. You've gone quiet. What's going on? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm just relying on word of mouth. I'm really busy at the moment with the acquisition we're doing, with all this. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to call you on that. I mean, what? And he goes, let me tell you the process I go through every time I publish a book. And this is an 8 times best-selling author. Like, this guy is just crushes it when it comes to books. And he just told me exactly what I went through. And I was like, wait, I'm not alone? And he's like, no. And so he goes through the exact same thing. So I knew I had to take action on that. The feeling that I got, even just knowing that I wasn't alone in that, the feeling I got somebody else telling me about that, it made me so relieved to know that I'm not mental. It made me relieved to know I'm not in this alone. But it also made me realize the power of actually talking about things. So the next day, I swallowed my pride. I wrote a big LinkedIn article about it. And I said, this is the journey I've just been on. And I talked about imposter syndrome, talked about what I just faced. And then I said at the end, and I'm going to now take action. I'm going to tell you, if you're a marketer or an entrepreneur, you need to buy this book. It's actually a damn good book. And I know, because I poured my heart and soul into it. It's the kind of book I want to read. I've already seen how it's transformed people's businesses. So buy this book. So that was my kind of thing. And then 2 things happened from there, Rowena. Number one, massive spike in book sales. I was like, yes, I should do this way more often. But the second thing that happened was everyone reaching out to me. And my inbox got flooded with people just going, same. I feel like you're telling my story. Oh my goodness, I'm there right now. I've been there before. Vince, you're speaking my truth. And I was like, we need to, as a society, as entrepreneurs particularly, we need to talk about it more. I mean, the latest stats, depends on which research paper you read, but it's either 72 or 78% of humans, like general humans, deal with imposter syndrome through their life. Now, if you reduce that, if you filter that down to just entrepreneurs, then it's probably more likely about 99%, with the 1% being sociopaths. We don't care about them. But the 99% are the ones who are really struggling with this. So I thought we as a kind of industry really need to be front footing this as much as possible. So I was like, okay. So I started studying what imposter syndrome is and how it affects us. And that's when I got the real revelation, because it was like, hang on a minute. We've always thought of imposter syndrome as something terrible, as something bad. Like, you always hear people say, you've got to fight it. You've got to combat it. You've got to, all these terms, or you've got to run from it, or you've got to push it back and all this.
Right.
But when you understand what imposter syndrome actually is, it's going to shift your focus, because imposter syndrome in itself is not bad at all. Right? All it is signals from the brain. I'll explain it in a minute. But what we choose to do with those signals, that's the bad part. The self-sabotage that we do, the turning down Forbes and CIO magazine and that's the part that's the negative. That's the part that's destructive. Imposter syndrome itself is literally your brain going, hey, Vince, hey, Dr. Rowena, you guys are outside of your comfort zone right now. I'm going to get you back in here where it's safe. And I'm going to use something that I know is highly motivating for you. And that is fear. That is fear of being judged, fear of being seen. There's fear of other people going, what right do you have to do this? So your brain's trying to protect you and get you back in a nice little comfy kind of space. So when you understand that, and you understand another fundamental truth of being an entrepreneur, then things will shift in your brain. Because if your brain's trying to keep you safe and pull you out and back into the comfort zone, but we also understand that as an entrepreneur, out of our comfort zone is exactly where we need to be.
Yeah.
Like that is where growth happens. That is where
Mhm.
prosperity, breakthrough, success, all of those things happen outside of our comfort zone, not in the comfort zone. So when you understand that, you realize that anytime you're feeling that, anytime your brain's going, hey, Vince, they're going to find out you have no idea what you're doing. They're going to find out you're making this up as you go along. That's your brain's way of saying, hey, Vince, you're exactly where you need to be right now.
Mm.
You're exactly where you should be, which is out of your comfort zone. And the other thing to note is, as entrepreneurs, we need to get really good at actually owning the fact that we have no idea what the hell we're doing.
Right?
We totally are making it up as we go along. In fact, we talk about imposter syndrome. If you're an entrepreneur, I'm telling you now, you are an imposter. You are literally doing something you've never done before. You're creating something that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
You're bringing it into existence. That really does define you as an imposter
Mhm.
until you get really good at it and you're no longer an imposter. But then you're going to another level. And this is the thing, is imposter syndrome kicks in every time you're
Yep.
pushing through to a new level, a new level, a new
New
level.
level, different devil. Yep.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So own it. Just embrace imposter syndrome. Go, you know what? This is awesome. Imposter syndrome is kicking in. That means I must be doing something right. I must be exactly where I need to be right now.
Yeah, I forget who said it, but I heard a quote that goes along with that, that in terms of when that fear kicks in or when you feel you're being pushed to your edges a bit, that's a good sign, especially as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. It's like that you're on to something, right?
Yeah.
And what a beautiful story about how you went through this experience. And then thankfully your mentor came through, which
Yeah.
is why the importance of mentors,
And
community,
coaches do it.
coaches,
Yeah.
yes, we need them. We need them to snap you out of it. And
Yeah.
then you turn around and voice that vulnerability, because I know for a lot of us, myself included, it can be very scary, but that
Yeah.
fear and being able to share what you're going through resonates so much more because
Yeah.
it's authentic. It's not contrived. It's not
Yeah.
that mask or that coat,
No,
as you
exactly.
mentioned. It's just us naked.
Yeah.
We're gonna use that code analogy.
Yeah.
Not
That's gonna be
literally
naked
there.
karaoke.
I
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
literally, but yeah,
No,
like
no.
you're just
No,
out
you're
there. Yes.
100% right. And it's a weird thing too, because I think all of us are guilty of this. I certainly know I am, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of all of you as well. We just have this habit of comparing ourselves with other people,
Mm,
which is an interesting thing to do, because we look at other entrepreneurs and we go, oh, they've got everything sorted, they've got everything sussed. But in reality, that's our interpretation of what we're seeing.
mm.
Right? That is, we're not in their shoes. We don't know what they go through. We don't know, what situation they're in, if they're struggling, if they're mentally struggling, if they're struggling with finances, any of those kind of things. In fact, it was when Adobe put me into the Fearless 50 program. So when they announced that, it was in the top 50 marketers, I got to be at this conference in San Fran. They basically only picked the top 25. So they said, you've got to come over, you've got to speak at this conference. I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. And they said, no, you need to come over. I'm like, whoa, okay, sure. I'm thinking, it's making a big deal out of this. So someone wants to hear from me. But I go over to San Fran, and they got up on stage and they said, right, we've got this conference, Marketing Nation. There's we've got these 25 speakers from all over the world here, as well as they had like Jamie Foxx and what's his name, Flow Rider, and all these kind of people there
Oh,
as
wow.
well. So yeah, so we were hobnobbing with them, not really, but kind of. but they had all these people there, and I'm like, this is awesome. I can't believe I'm going to get to speak to 7,000 people here. This is amazing. And then they said, but we've also launched this program to recognize the top 50 marketers in the world. And we've only chosen the top 25. And I'm going, oh, and they said, and they are our speakers here today. And I'm like, oh, those lucky sods. Oh, wow, good on them. And then realized, wait a minute, I'm one of those speakers. Now, I must be in a different category. And then they said, we really want to highlight 3 of those that we think are really pushing the boundaries of the industry, and 3 of those are really challenging, like the ethics and the way that we do things. And first of those is all the way from New Zealand. And I'm looking up on the screen, and there's this giant photo of me. And I'm going, wow, that guy looks so much like me. Like, seriously, my brain couldn't process the information in front of me.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then my name pops up, and I'm like, whoa, he's got the same name as me. And my brain's like processing, what are the odds of this? And then it's like, oh, wait, hold on. That's me.
That's you.
Imposter syndrome screamed at me at that point. It's like, dude, they obviously got the wrong person. They
Yeah.
just haven't worked it out yet. But there was a byproduct of all of that. We got to, because I was at Fearless 50, we got to go to all these parties. Honestly, we were there for a week. It was amazing.
That sounds awesome.
Every night they had around 7 parties or so, and you would go to these parties and you choose which ones to go to. But you got to hang out with other people that were in the Fearless 50. So all of my heroes in the industry, I'm hanging out with these people. I'm going to dinner with them. I'm having drinks with them. I'm like, I can't, like, forget that I was nominated, forget that I won this. I'm in this group of people. I get to hang out with
Yeah.
all my heroes, and then discovered something which really did surprise me. These are all the people I look up to. Every single one of them, as we were talking, was starting to open up to each other, and I realized they're all as much of a hot mess as I am. They all
Yes.
deal with imposter syndrome, doubt. I'm talking to, actually, I won't embarrass them and name them, but like one of my biggest heroes in the industry. Like, this is a person I consume every book they put out. I just love their work. I love their take on different things. And to get, even just to get to hear them speak face to face, like at the conference, blew my mind. You know, it was like,
Mhm.
wow. But then I'm sitting down having some whiskeys with them, and they started talking
Oh,
about their,
whiskey, of course.
oh, of course, yeah. By the way, I discovered Americans, they like light drinks, really. So, you know, when you're on about 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or more whiskeys, they're gone, and you're sitting there going, "Oh, wow, lightweights." Kiwis like our drink. But I'm sitting there talking to them, and the more they talk, the more they start talking about the financial difficulties they're in at the moment, the relationship that's falling apart, all these kind of things. And I'm going, I wanted to be this person. I looked at this person and thought, I want my life to be like their life. I want to be, because every photo I ever saw of them on Instagram was them, you know, in first class, you know, sitting there
Right,
sipping their champagne, or at some
right.
exclusive party hanging out with celebrities. I'm like, man, they are living the dream. And then realized it ain't a dream. It's just the same kind of life as mine in different circles. They've got the same problems that we all
Mhm,
have. They've got the same
mhm.
insecurities that we all have. It's a real eye opener.
Yeah, it's all those feelings. It doesn't matter where you came from per your
Yep.
story or where
Yep.
you are now or the successes you've had. We all go through this. And I love, even when you were just introducing yourself, talking about how before you built successful businesses, you had a lot of failed, right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Because
some spectacular failures, by the way. They were awesome. Yeah.
epic hot messes, right? We
Yeah.
all have those experiences, and the more that we speak truth to those and read those stories and share in
Yeah.
those stories, that yeah, we're all connected in this way. It's
Yeah.
no
Oh, man.
matter who
Yeah.
you are, and
We're
that's what I love about
yeah.
my personal heroes, right? Is hearing those moments of humanity and just the
One
humility
one
of
of my
that.
favorite things to do, Rowena, is, I'm a huge fan of Pat Flynn. I'm going to, by the way, Pat, if you're watching this, I'm going to get you on my podcast. So, anyway, so huge
You heard
fan
it
of
here,
Pat.
folks.
Yeah, because Pat Flynn is, if you haven't seen Pat Flynn or heard Pat Flynn's podcast, he's just one of the most genuinely nice people, and I really resonate with that, you know, so I want to connect with him. But one of the things he did really blew me away. He shared his first ever podcast recording, the one that never went to air, and it was so bad. It was really cringeworthy, and I'm like, but he
Yeah.
shared it to say, "You see successes now, and you think that was instantaneously like that." But the only reason I got that is because I had the failure up front. I had those embarrassing moments and kept doing it anyway. And when you make those embarrassing moments or those failures early on, guess what? You have a small audience, right? Nobody remembers that. When you get bigger and bigger, they're suddenly like, oh, wow, you were an overnight success. And you're like, don't insult me. You should have seen what
Yeah,
I went through.
years
But
ago.
I remember one of my first kind of major companies, like my first actual company, by the way, was when I was age 11. And please do not judge me for this, people. I had no moral compass at home, right? As I said, I grew up in an impoverished household with, you know, with abuse and things. So I was literally sent down to supermarkets to steal food from behind the supermarket so that we had food to eat on the table. Not proud of that, but that's what we did to survive, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, of course.
So age 11, I discovered that my brain is really, really good. So despite the family I grew up in, no, so I had been given these broken personal computers, like very first person computers, the Sinclair ZX81s, and the keyboards didn't work on them. And someone was like, oh, tax write off, throw them in the bin. And then my dad found them and said, oh, here, you play with these. He just thought they'd be like gadgets to play with. But I realized what they were. And I thought, well, if the keyboards don't work, that's just a rubber membrane. So I took them apart, fixed them, and managed to get 2 out of the 3 units working, sold those to families of friends of mine at school, and then use that money to buy a Commodore 64, and then realize all of the software and all of the games for a Commodore 64 is on cassette tape. Hello, I can copy all of those. So I had no moral compass, but my first business when I was age 11 was selling pirated video games and software. And I made a killing doing that. Honestly, it was really good money, but don't do that, kids. So one of my first ever proper companies was a company called Mobile Combat. And we wanted to launch the company through a concept called Startup Weekend. So basically, it's where a whole pile of entrepreneurs come together. You pitch an idea, you get like 110 ideas. everyone picks the top 10 or so.
Mhm.
My idea was in the top 10. So then you build a team around you, and then the idea is you build a company in a weekend, like a long weekend, 3 days.
Wow.
And at the end of that, you get judged and all this kind of thing. And we did incredibly well. We came out of there and we had this concept for a mobile game that was going to be amazing. But it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is I learned a lot. We had the wrong developer for starters. He really struggled with it. So that's fine. The designer was at that time being, wooing his girlfriend. So he was very unfocused, but they're now married. So it's all good. So we had the wrong team on board, but also we missed the opportunity. The potential for this was going to be incredible, but we misread one thing. So the idea behind the game was, it was at the height of when Apple users and Android had just first come out. So there was Apples and Androids, and about 3 or 4 people that use Windows Mobile. So what we wanted to do is we wanted everyone to compete against each other. So they would sign up for this game, and depending on what platform you're on, if you're on iPhone, you'd be walking around the street and it'd be like a Top Trump style game. You'd see Android users around you, right? You wouldn't see who they are. It's all private and anonymized. But if there's an Android user near you, you could battle them. And it does this thing, and you battle them. And the idea is you take your city, you take your island, your country, you take your region, all these kind of things for your platform of choice. And honestly, the buzz around it was incredible. We ended up getting a major sponsor over here who was going to come on board and advertise through it and do microtransactions in there and everything. But then they had to pull out because they told Apple what they were doing. And Apple were like, excuse me, we do not like to be compared to anybody. If you sponsor this game, if you give them any visibility, we will remove all of our phones from your stores. You will lose all access to sell Apple products. So they were like, whoa, we're done. We're sorry.
My.
So big failure. But we learned a lot through that. And honestly, some of the relationships I formed there, I still have today. And we had a lot of fun. There was a lot of drinking involved, funny enough. But we did a reunion many years later. We did a reunion for Startup Weekend. And each year, ours was the first one. Each year they did another Startup Weekend and everything. And we got all these companies together. And they would go around the room and they say who they are, what their company was, what their cohort was. And everyone started doing the same thing, but they go, oh, well, I started, we designed this company here. And then when we left there, we realized there was a challenge. So we pivoted and we did this. And then all of my team left. So I pivoted to this. And then I had no money. So I pivoted that into a corporate job. And then I pivoted that into it. And I'm like, these are not pivots. You failed. And that's okay. And you couldn't tell that to people. And they're going around the room and everyone was like, pivot, pivot, pivot. It felt like a Friends episode. And it got to me and I thought, I really want to own this. So I said, right, they said, oh, it's Vince. Everyone knew me anyway there because I was quite well known in the community. So, oh, Vince, I said, hey, guys, so look, Vince, Mobile Combat, first cohort. Man, we had so much fun. We built this company and it failed so miserably. I said, it was spectacular. We were like riding this high and then boom, the rugs pulled out from under us. But I learned so much and I had a blast. It was amazing. And I was talking about the positive aspects of that. And then you see the shift in the room and the next company after us went, yeah, we failed as well, actually. Yeah, we did. We misread the market and really the opportunity wasn't as big as we thought, but we learned a lot as well. And then it was like, yeah, we failed as well. Oh man, you think you failed? I lost, $10,000 investment and blah, blah, blah. Oh man, I did. And it started this whole culture of going, failure is not bad. Failure is learnings,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. What it's just so many examples of you're just so courageous and you're just a catalyst for these stories that need to happen. I applaud you so much. And it's just so inspiring to see folks like you who are going out there and be like, F it, I'm just going to say it like it is, right?
Do you know the interesting thing, though? The second you said that, when you said courageous, I recoiled on the inside.
There it is.
And I did that because I don't feel courageous. And I want to state that because there's a whole pile of people that when we say things like that, we say, hey, Vince, you're so courageous for doing this, you and people like you. We immediately make people think, but not like me. But I would argue that actually there's no difference between me and anyone listening to your show, anyone watching this. There's absolutely no difference because all of us, courage isn't something special in the sense that you're not born with all this courage and this, rah, I'm going to take on the world. We're all not Conan. You're born with fear. All of us have fear, but it's what you choose to do with that. And despite the fact that it comes across as courageous, I'm as riddled with anxiety and fear and all that and insecurity as everybody else. But I chose to do something anyway. I chose to go, despite all of those things that I'm feeling, I'm going to step into that. And it doesn't always work like that. There are things that I have missed, massive opportunities I've missed because of fear and insecurity. Massive opportunities I've missed because, like, for example, the Forbes interview, turning that down because basically I
Yeah,
was scared.
scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification that
Yeah.
it's moving forward and doing these things and saying these things despite that fear.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just so wonderful. Well, I'm sure, 'cause I mean, listen, I told you we're friends now. We're gonna
Yeah.
sing karaoke
Oh, yeah.
someday.
We're
We'll let
karaoke
y'all
twins.
know.
Yeah.
We'll let you
Yeah.
know when we're
We
singing Creep. We'll be there.
we have to do a duet. We'll find a duet. We'll do Islands in the
Oh,
Stream or something. We'll just have some fun. It'll be amazing.
I love me a good duet, Vince. I am so here for it. Tell the folks how can we find you? How can we connect with you? I will share all of the links that so that people can find you. But what's the
Yeah.
best way to connect with you ASAP?
Well, the good thing is I'm not a fan of Where's Wally, so I like to make it as easy as possible to find me. So just go to chasingtheinsights.com. That's the home of my podcast. It's the home of my book. It's the home of all the links to my social profiles. So just go through there and connect with me. Unless you're a spammer, I don't really connect with spammers, but otherwise, if you're human, I'm okay. So come and connect with me. But you're also going to see a link on there to a free strategy call. And I'm a firm believer in serving, not selling. So I'm a firm believer of actually just wanting to impact people and make a change. And when you do that, when you help other people, good things come back to you. So if you're struggling with anything in marketing, you're struggling with clarity, you're struggling with visibility, you don't know how to differentiate yourself, you don't know how to convert leads, generate leads, all those kind of things, or you just need someone to talk to about that, book that free strategy call, no obligation, and I'll give you the clarity that you need.
Yes. Book that strategy call, activate that abundance, y'all. Vince, you have officially become the guest who I've spoken the longest to because you had so many gems to share. And I
We
hope
did
you
talk
honor
about this,
that
Rowena. There was
title.
always going to be a risk, wasn't it? Because when you and I talk, it's like, this is going to be like a 5-hour episode. Yeah.
Listen, you can't keep us extroverts beholden to 20 to 30 minutes, but I'm sure your strategy call will be.
Yeah.
Not hours
Definitely
long.
book into the 30 minutes. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I will be sure to drop all those links. Y'all need to connect with Vince. He's amazing, as you can see and hear. And next week, I'm going to be talking to Aggie Heel, and she's from Singapore. So, y'all, there's a time change. We're going to be talking on here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because I didn't want her to be hopping on here at 5 a.m. That just seemed very rude. She's going to be talking about her book that's come out on simple and empowering techniques to combat anxiety. So I think that actually piggybacks really well.
Yeah.
All of our
Well,
chat today,
you
Vince.
realize I'm going to be listening. So I'm like, I need to hear that. Yeah.
Vince's going to be taking notes as well. So join Vince next time. And until then, take care of each other, be safe out there, and just know that you can fight through that fear like Vince has had and just step into the amazing human beings that you are. You got this. And we're here for you if you need help and support because we're here to
Awesome.
serve, right, Vince?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Awesome.
cool.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.